All right. Thank you guys for joining us. This is the kickoff to 2025 Spring into Safety. As you know, this is an initiative we're trying where at the beginning of the dive season, we share events, close calls, and accidents that have happened in the past in an effort to help jog everyone's safety reflex as they go into the new dive season instead of waiting for a new accident to happen. I feel like there's a lot to learn from the old ones. So today's story is about my time diving in Louisiana. Slight backstory on it. It's going to be mixed in here and there just to get an idea of like what was going on for me in that time period, because I was younger then, and it's really different from how I think about things now. So let's see. Louisiana. I was there for about 4.5 years in total, and I was fortunate enough to spearfish out there, the oil rigs, for, I want to say 2.5, 3 years. So it's about a full year I lived out there before ever getting the opportunity to get in the water and spearfish. It took me that long of time to recover from having sold all my stuff and moved from Hawaii to Louisiana, no car, getting a divorce, finding myself in a whole bunch of debt, and not having a steady income from working offshore oil rigs. It wasn't until I got into the salt mines that I had a steady workflow, steady income, and I was disciplined through that year. So finally got that disposable income to go spearfishing in Louisiana. And why that's so important in Louisiana is the only place you can really spearfish in Louisiana is 30 miles offshore, because the water is just so murky. Prior to that, it's literally just muddy water. And you get 30 miles out and you actually have some clarity. So got onto a dive charter. This dive charter was based out of Lafayette, and it was really for scuba divers. I was the only free diver on board. There was another kid who was snorkeling and using a spear gun. Great for him. I think he might have been too young to take the scuba classes. I'm not entirely sure, but he was in the water as well. But everyone else in the boat, the other 3 to 4 divers, were scuba divers. And we had a great time. The fish out there, just big and friendly, really timid. So they swim right up to you and you get your choice of your 15, 20 pound fish. It was really nice. And then the oil rigs themselves, they're just beautiful. I mean, just the structure that goes from surface down beyond to where you can see, and it's just teeming with life. So that was awesome as well. And it was awesome for me as a free diver with a bunch of scuba divers, because one, when we get to a rig and we hook up, it's going to take them about 15, 20 minutes to get their gear on. And I'm in the water and have all the fish to myself at that time. And why that's even a factor is once the scuba divers get in, they chase all the fish down deeper, as I would come to learn. So that first 20 minutes, I'd get 3 to 4 fish, just nice, easy stone shots. And then after that, when they start going down deeper, I have to start working for my catch. And it was also nice because in between the scuba divers' dives, they need an hour on surface. So as we're bouncing around from oil rig to oil rig, because they're just everywhere. But they'll stop off at the smaller rigs for me to just hop in the water and see what's around. So I got to get in the water about like 6 to 8 times that day. I really enjoyed it. So that trip came and went, and I want to say it was like 2 to 3 months after that. I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I work this into a dive season so I can go as often as possible during the summertime? And one of the divers from that trip had reached out to me, and he said, hey, we started a dive club. We thought you were pretty cool, pretty awesome. And love for you to dive with us if you're interested. This is the yearly fee, and then this is what it costs per trip. We got a boat between us all, and we have a camp that we'll meet at before heading out the next morning. And yeah, we plan to just really explore this. And I don't know if it was because they were new to it or because they were just awesome. And honestly, they were awesome. But you know, that animosity you commonly get between free divers and scuba spearos just wasn't there. And I love them for that. That was awesome. So I'm diving with these guys for about 2.5, 3 years. And it was fun getting to explore it through all the seasons, the different seasons of fish, the different seasons of weather, the rougher weather, the beautiful glassy weather. It was really nice. But the main guy who owned the camp and who owned the boat, his name was Chet. So every time I dove, every time I went out, I would be hanging out with Chet for sure. Like I saw him every single time I did a trip. And there's times where it's just Chet and I and Chet and another guy, but I'd always take off from work, so I always be hanging out with Chet at camp the day before. So I got to know Chet pretty well. And I still remember I was getting myself into trouble with the dive club because along with the charter, a lot of my trips, I would mark my fish. I was throwing like a little zip tie in the fish's mouth so I know which fish were mine, because I shot my fish, I want to take my fish home. And mind you, after having been in debt and just hustling to get caught up and make something of myself that first year, I was really of a mindset that everything I do, I need to achieve something. So I needed to make sure I got my limit. I needed to make sure I brought that fish home because you're paying to be out there. So I was marking my fish, and the other divers were getting a little upset that I was just freely taking my fish home. And I understand. Now that I'm older, I understand. But I remember I had to take Chet on the side and talk to him. I was like, hey man, you got to understand, I'm out here diving by myself. You guys are all together doing scuba diving. You guys have your oxygen and everything, but I'm out here by myself. Every time I leave the surface, it's my life in my own hands. And yeah, you guys see me come up with all this fish, but you don't see the 10 years I've been diving before this, all the experience I had. You don't see me running after work 2 to 3 times a week. You don't see me doing breath holds or anything. My hope and goal is the first couple of trips out, I fill up the freezer, and after that, anytime I go diving, I don't have to worry about producing fish. I can just explore the rigs. I can just relax and dive and take what I want, shoot 1 to 2 fish, and that's it. And it was good because when next time it's brought up, oh, it's easy for you, and Chet spoke up for me saying, no, he just makes it look easy. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it. So I really appreciate him for that. And I really did mean it, that not being in the mindset of I have to get a limit and just diving to see what happens out there, see what comes across, see what you want to take. I really enjoyed that. It reminded me a lot of diving in Hawaii, where I got to dive so frequently that there was no pressure to go home with anything or a certain amount of anything. So yeah, dove for 2 to 3 years with those guys, and then eventually I wanted to move to Washington to be closer to family and closer to Hawaii, because it was costing me a whole day of travel just to go home and see family. And in the time that I had moved to Louisiana from Hawaii, I had 2 cousins and my sister moved to Washington, so it was the next best place. And I had actually been visiting Washington yearly after having moved to Louisiana to visit my dad to go fishing for salmon. So I'd seen enough of the state to know that, yeah, I'd like to check that out as well. And I'm in Washington, and I'm exploring the spearfishing opportunities in Washington, making new dive buddies, traveling to Nia Bay, going down to California for abalone, just really living an awesome experience where, everything's new in the spearfishing and you're growing at the different stages of the new environment that you're in. It's one of my favorite parts of diving. And at one point in time, it's like, hey, why don't we do a trip back to Louisiana, dive the oil rigs, because Chet them still have the boat. We're still in touch. We're still good friends. And I'd love to take my Washington friends, and if I can get them, some of my old Hawaii dive partners, and we'll go meet up in Louisiana and go dive into oil rigs, because it's a bit of a bucket list item. And man, if I hadn't already been there, firsthand experience. I'm like, no, I would have to go. And then honestly, I still want to go back. I still want to go back and dive there again. So we're planning this with Chet. We're planning for July because Red Snapper opens in June, and I don't want to try to get in at the start of the season with the rest of the divers. I want to make sure they have their own season opener. And then I get in when everybody's, a little busier with life. So we're planning for July, and we're staying in touch frequently. because if you're planning to dive Friday, Saturday, you can't commit to the trip till Wednesday because you need to see what the weather is, because the weather just changes. It's one of those places that the weather changes so quickly. And, Wednesday is as early as you can call it for whether or not the weekend's good. So we're keeping in touch frequently, because not only do we have that short window for a yes or no, we actually need to purchase our airline tickets ahead of time. And then, so one of the evenings, I'm here in Washington, I'm looking through Facebook, because I love using Facebook for coordinating between different hobbies. So spearfishing, and end up using it for mushroom foraging, squidding, and all that stuff. I love it for that. But going through that one evening, I started to notice a lot of my friends from Louisiana were saying, hopes and prayers, please, hopes and prayers for my friend, for my family, or something along those lines. And initially I thought, is there a storm or something blowing through? Because it gets a little gusty there at times. But then I realized that it was actually all my old dive buddies that were posting that. So I went to the club's Facebook page and was trying to figure out what was going on, and then I realized that everyone was posting something except for Chet. So I remember messaging him and saying, hey buddy, I'm seeing everybody posting such and such. I hope you're okay out there, bud. Of course, I didn't get a message back. I remember getting a message from his account like 2 a.m. And it was his wife. I remember saying something along the lines of, no, everything's not okay. They can't find Chet. The Coast Guard's been looking all night. And then the next part she said really stuck with me. I remember saying, I just want this to all be a bad dream. I just want to wake up from this nightmare. And the story went, to my understanding, and mind you, I haven't gone back to look into it. We're going off of my very bad memory. But it was red snapper opener. There's at least three to five divers in total went down. And Chet had shot a fish somewhere between 30 and 50. And everyone else continued down. And then at the end of their dive, they got back on the boat and they were waiting for Chet. Well, my lesson for this one, that I really took from it myself, is seeing the impact that you have on your loved ones. Chet had a daughter, a wife, a family business, I'm sure a mortgage, a camp and boat payment, and everything that he left behind. Don't get me wrong, we know it was an accident. He didn't choose for this to happen, but we also know how divers, including on our freediver side, especially on our freediver side, how divers die. We know what we can do to avoid situations. This is easy enough to see, but you got to remember why you need to make that the priority. And it's because of the loved ones you leave behind. I know we all say, at least I know I do, if I die spearfishing, I'll die happy, I'll die doing something I love. And I still hold true to that, but we gotta do it when we're 80 or 90 or something. Because you just gotta think about the impact. Your death would have on the people you leave behind. You gotta remember that, and you gotta remember you can't, there's just some things there's a lot of things you can't rewind. So they don't happen from the get-go. So that's my story. That's my spring into safety. Hope you all get out there and have a great season.